Here she comes, guys.
What gift did you give? Any place that? Go with them. I've seen you. She came out. I got her out. So I said, Reno.
We just look so good, right? Hello everybody, thank you guys so much for being here. We're so excited to get this party started. So who's ready for a new president? I don't know about you guys, but I'm so excited to hear from Dr. Joe Biden here in Reno. My name is Jenny Malik, and I am part of Team Joe working out of beautiful state of Nevada. There's so much at stake in this country right now, and I don't know, I don't have to tell you that at all, because that's why you're all here today, is to get involved, because we need to get Donald Trump out of office, and we need to make the Vice President, Joe Biden, our Democratic nominee. This is where you all come in. We need to reach out to as many voters as possible to caucus on Nevada, to caucus in Nevada on February 22nd. We're going to win this campaign by having a person-to-person conversation. We're going to do door-to-door, knocking doors, canvassing. We're going to make phone calls. We're going to talk to every single voter in Nevada, whether they come from Elko, whether they come from Mesquite, Carson City, Reno, or Ely, Pahrump, everywhere there are voters, we're going to be there. But we can't do this alone. So whether it's knocking on doors, making phone calls, stopping by the field office to drop off a case of water for those people who are making those phone calls and knocking those doors, we would really appreciate it. We need all of you. Last but definitely not least, we are looking for precinct captains. I know that sounds like a big deal, but it's really quite easy. You're an advocate for Joe in your community, and then on caucus day, February 22nd, you'll be in the room doing what I know you're already doing, talking about Joe to the members of your community and convincing them to stand in our corner and join Team Joe. This is one of the most critical ways that we can ensure he wins here in Nevada. And here's the next step that you guys can all take right now. If you all have your phone out, and take a minute to just text Nevada to the phone number 30330. Do I need to repeat that for anyone? Yes. Okay. Text Nevada, or just NV, if you want to keep it short, to 30330. Wonderful. And that will get you guys right into our system, and we'll call you tomorrow and ask you when you're available to help us out and volunteer. So that's 30330. One more time? It's on there. Oh my gosh, it's right there. You can even text a woman. Yeah! Now that you're all signed up to hear the latest from Team Joe in Nevada, and for future events and volunteer opportunities to get involved. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Alicia Peters, who is our Northern Nevada Political Director, to give a few words. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight, and for those of you that brought toys as a donation for the Domestic Violence Resource Center, we are so grateful. My name is Alicia Peters. I am indeed the Northern Nevada Political Director for the Biden campaign, and it's just really nice to see so many friendly faces tonight, so many women in our community who are powerful, who have been trailblazers, and who truly are invested in helping us defeat Donald Trump in 2020. So I just want to reiterate what Jenny said. This campaign, this caucus, can only be won by volunteers. So if you have time to volunteer on caucus day, to take some time at night to make calls from your living room, could come join us on a Saturday for a canvass, please, please, please take that time and join us. We need you. It's now my pleasure to introduce my dear friend and my mentor, Marlene Lockhart. Marlene is one of those trailblazing women that I just mentioned. For those of you that don't know, Marlene was the first chief of staff, female chief of staff, for a Nevada governor in history. And I think it's important to note that that governor was also former U.S. Senator Richard Bryan, one of our endorsers, and I know that his daughter Leslie is here today, so thank you so much for joining us. introduction. She's deeply involved in our community. She's a huge advocate for issues revolving around domestic violence and is one of the chief lobbyists for women's issues at the Nevada legislature. So she's a crucial member of Team Joe. Thank you for letting us use your home tonight, allowing us to be here with all of you. Please join me in giving Marlene a warm round of applause.
My goodness, I'm not going to know how to act. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for being here this evening. When I sent out a note to all of you inviting you, I said, women of consequence joining women of consequence. And all of you here are a woman of consequence. You have done such amazing things, so many different fields represented, but all of you have worked so hard over the years advancing women, children, and families, and in so many different professions, doing what you do in a way that makes our state better to live, and working hard to elect Joe Biden as our next president so that we do not any longer put children in cages in this country on the border. And so I thank you all for being here. We have the most amazing woman of consequence with us here tonight. And it is my honor to introduce Dr. Joe Biden, who as the Second Lady for the United States of America served tirelessly on behalf of military families, cancer research, and doing all of that in conjunction at the same time as being a professor at a community college in Virginia. How she does it, she's currently working at her job as she crisscrosses this country on behalf of the campaign, and it's amazing to me how you do that. I was absolutely thrilled and pleased last night to watch the debate and to see our candidate, Vice President Joe Biden, absolutely kill it. So welcome to my home. We are so honored that you're here, honored that you're in Nevada, and honored that you place enough emphasis on the role women can play in this country to be here. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Marlene. I'm moving up. Maybe in more ways than one. So I want to thank you really for hosting us today. You know, your many roles, as Alicia just mentioned, you know, and you've been such a powerful leader here in this state. And I know that women of this state are safer because of the Committee to Aid Abused Women, where you are, where you serve as well. And I love this idea of bringing gifts, you know, to the children who are in the shelters. And not everybody would think of that, so thank you so much. And thank you for bringing together all these women today. And former Lieutenant Governor Wagner. Okay, where? Ah, hello. Thank you so much for joining us as well. You know, true leadership is following your conscience, even when it leads you away from the party you call home. And Lieutenant Governor, your courage to do that is an inspiration. And I want to thank you all for being here. I know that this is such a hectic time. I mean, I walk in here and everything looks so beautiful, and I think to myself, oh my God, I got to get home. Seriously. I mean, I'm ordering online, you know, trying to pull things together for my friends. thank God for them. They came over to my house and decorated my tree. I was on the road. One's there now taking care of my dogs. I mean, it's just, that saying it takes a village is the truth, because trying to be out here on the road every single day is a lot you have to pull together. So, thanks for taking the time, because I know you could be doing like 100 other things. And I recently heard a story that's really stuck with me, and it was about a woman named Lindsay. And Lindsay found that her little 2-year-old daughter, Lily, had eaten Dramamine pills after the child safety lock failed, on the bottle. So when she called poison control, they told her that that drug caused seizures and that she needed to go to the emergency room right away. And, they said, we have to monitor your daughter. But we know how much that costs to take a child to the emergency room. And their family had been uninsured since 2017, when Lindsay left her job. And the premiums and the deductibles were just too high. So she and her husband drove to the hospital. They parked like 100 feet from the emergency room door. And they waited and they watched their daughter all night long, thinking that if anything happened, they could run inside. And thankfully, after a few hours, they realized that she was going to be okay, and they drove home. So can you imagine what a nightmare that must have been for that mother? And can you imagine the guilt that she must have felt that, she didn't have the means to have health care? And, don't you think parenting is hard enough without asking moms and dads to choose between whether to take their 2-year-old to the emergency room or go into crippling debt? And stories like that are exactly why President Obama and my husband fought so hard to pass the Affordable Care Act. And the Affordable Care Act could have easily become just another failed attempt at health care reform. But all of us knew that it was just too important to let that happen. So when the legislation came up, President Obama said to Joe, you've got to go up to Capitol Hill. We've got to get this done. And as you know, they did. And because of that law, 20 million additional people were able to get coverage. Recommended preventative care became free, and 130 million people with pre-existing conditions can no longer be discriminated against. And it has saved so many lives. But since then, since we've gotten out of office, the ACA has been under constant attack. And as we saw with the last court decision, this administration will stop at nothing but to tear that law apart. And since Trump's election, more Americans are now uninsured. And, to be honest with you, it's hard to watch this president attack so much of the progress that we made in the Obama-Biden administration. When Joe wrote the Violence Against Women Act, many of his colleagues were against the bill. They didn't want to get involved in what they thought was a private family matter. But Joe fought for 4 years, and he brought together a national coalition and members from both sides of the aisle to beat the odds. And since it was passed, and you probably know this so well, lives have been changed, lives have been saved, And we've seen a true cultural change, not just for the survivors of domestic violence abuse, but rape, assault, and sex trafficking as well. But today, Republicans will not reauthorize the law. And families are being torn apart at the border. Reproductive justice is under assault. The LGBTQ discrimination is being written into our laws. And bigotry and hatred, we've seen it, marching through the streets, torches in hand, like we saw in Charlottesville. And it's not just what they do, it's what they leave undone. Equal pay for equal work. Like we've fought so hard. And I don't know how many of you are, from the 60s, like I am, when we fought so hard for that. Affordable child care, better education, and student debt relief. Standing up to the NRA so that we don't have to witness one more student running from their classroom in terror. And I teach at a community college, and day one when my students come in, one of the first things I have to say to them is, if we have an active shooter on this campus, I want you to be prepared. I want you to know what route you will take to get out of my classroom to save yourself. And I show them all the exits and how they have to get out of there. And these are adults. I mean, average age community college is 28, but a lot of these kids are like high school kids. They're 17 and 18 years old. And you can just imagine, for those of you who are moms and grandmoms and you hear from your own kids, about duck and cover, that these little kids come home, they're scared to death. Women have fought so long to be seen as equals under the law, to have a voice in our nation, to have the right to decide what our lives can be. And we're not going to go back now. We need a president who stands beside us, who fights beside us, and most of all, who knows how to win. Anyone can tell you what they're going to do, but Joe Biden can tell you what he's done. Because these issues have been so important to him throughout his entire career. And he knows how to actually bring people together. And if any of you saw the debate last night, did anybody? So I know Marlene said, wow, you guys are brave. I mean, that's a long time to sit through that and without like yawning on camera or anything like that. You don't have to be like, oh, the camera's always on me. Just keep smiling. So when he says, he's going to make sure that no parent has to fearfully wait in a hospital parking lot, because we have built up the Affordable Care Act, and you know that he means that. When he says he's going to straighten VAWA, you know that you can take him at his word. And when he says he's going to take on the NRA, or make sure that you get paid what you deserve, or make sure that we have universal pre-K for our little kids, you can believe him. He has won these battles before, and he can do it again. And just as importantly, or maybe even most important, he is our best shot against Donald Trump. And here's why. And I thought last night, he was so strong at that debate. He just didn't take it from anything from anybody. And so here's why. So I know this is a Women for Biden event, but maybe your neighbor said, hey, just come on in here if you're on the fence. I don't assume that every one of you in here is a Biden person, unless Marlene was like, you're a Biden person. So if you're on the fence and you need to say, say, or you need to say to your neighbor who might be on the fence, who may be like not sure of, who they want to elect or to caucus for. So number one is, this is number one, why you should be on Joe's team. His coalition. It's the broadest and most diverse. And it's made up of people who win elections, especially the Black and Latino communities, women and independents. Those independents are really important to this election. And then no Democrat. I don't care which one of those candidates up there on stage. No one can win without independents. Number two, swing states. So we have to win in states like, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, Florida. We have to beat Trump in those states. And number three, which is his vision. And his ideas are bold and progressive, from education to climate change to healthcare. But they're also, and this is the one thing, they're also achievable. He's pragmatic, he's practical. He knows he suggests things so he knows how to get things that we can pay for and that seem reasonable. He doesn't make promises he can't keep. 4 more years of this Donald Trump presidency will fundamentally change the character of our nation and our standing in the world with our allies. I mean, look at just what happened with the Kurds. And, look at the NATO conference and how Trump was looked at by the other leaders of other countries. But I know that women, we are a pretty strong force, and I know that women are not going to let Donald Trump have 4 more years. When I was second lady, I visited the Kibera community in Nairobi, Kenya. And with no electricity and little running water, it's the largest urban slum in Africa. Has anybody been there? So a correspondent for the BBC once called it, quote, 600 acres of mud and filth with a brown stream dribbling through the middle. And when we went there, that's exactly what it was, I'm telling you. Everybody lived in huts. We had to put on boots up to our knees because there were no bathrooms. And so, we had to be careful what we were walking through. It was unbelievable. But when I was there, I met a young girl, Aaliyah. She was 25 years old. And she had dedicated her life in this slum, educating young girls and women about teen pregnancy, early marriage, sexual assault, and rape, because there was so much of it in that slum. And these were the topics that were they were taboo, and nobody was supposed to mention them. And it was often dangerous for her to be talking to these young women. And her life was so difficult, seeing the heartbreak every single day, and just her existence. And I said to her, Aaliyah, you're so smart. When are you planning to leave this slum and try to make a better life for yourself? And she had a little child. But she told me, no, I'm not leaving. This is my home. I want to make a difference here. And, I think about her strength a lot. How she refused to give up. How despite the tragedy she witnessed, she never sank into despair. And I see her strength in so many women in my life. We don't leave our problems behind. we stay and we fight for the things that matter to us. Women are powerful. You know, we lift up our communities and we win elections. And that's what Women for Biden is all about. Tapping into the incredible power and persistence of women across America who are ready for change. So I'm asking you today to fight for your community. So, you know, I want you to think about what you can give to this effort. And I'm not just talking, I'm not saying financially. I'm saying, I know that you are all busy, successful women. But this election is like no other election. This president, this man, is like no other president or man I have ever known. Isn't that true? Yes. So, you know, think about, you've got to go that extra step. You've got to say, God, I'm so busy, you know, I'm working or I'm volunteering or I have 3 kids. But you have to do it for them, for our future. So you have to give that extra hour or that extra day, you know, whatever it is. If you can knock on doors, and believe me, I've been out there in the cold, in New Hampshire, and, you know, knocking on the doors. It was freezing. How cold was it? Like 38? It was freezing out there. And I know it's hard. It's hard. I know it's hard. So, or maybe you want to become a precinct captain. And apparently there's classes to be precinct captains. So, and think about your networks. So I know all of you are probably, you know, you have your neighborhoods, you have your book groups. I hope I'm an English teacher. You know, you have your schools, your churches. I mean, people that, you know, when you're talking to your friends, even those who aren't involved in politics, just say, this is too important. You have to think about getting involved. And for those of you who are still on the fence, and there may be some in this room, you know, who are still deciding, I want you to think, and maybe you don't want to, you know, speak out in this group, but I am at jill@joebiden.com. If you want to email me and say, hey Jill, I saw you at Marlene's, but I wanted to ask you, and then pose your question. Or maybe you forgot about it, but as you're falling asleep, you think, oh, I should have asked her this. You know, I mean, come talk to me, because I want women to know how important it is that we elect Joe, because he will always be in your corner. And for the mothers and the daughters I talked about, the mother who had the little baby who had taken the Dramamine, you know, or women who are struggling, like Marlene knows, and like a lot of you must know because you all brought gifts, with violence or trafficking, which I see so much with my students and as I travel around this country. And actually, when I was here the last time, many of those women were worried about the trafficking because of Las Vegas. I mean, they gave me a whole education. You know, everyone's rights women's rights are under attack. And nothing is going to change it unless we do it. Unless we do it. So, really, I want to thank you all for giving me your time tonight. You know, you should all, it's Friday night, you all should all be drinking wine and sipping cocktails. So,
We are.
You know, I really want to thank you for your faith in an idea that's so much bigger than any one of us. And that is that we can build a better nation if we do this together. So thank you for your time today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you guys again for being here. Dr. Biden's here to hang out and mix and mingle and take a couple pictures if you guys want me. So thank you.
Yeah, the selfies, that's what I'm here. I'm going to be the social media coordinator.
So, and if you'd rather just come up to me, and if you have a question or and you want to ask me personally, as you know, I'm all about education as a teacher for 35 years, and, you know, Joe's plan is just incredible. But if there's something else that's on your mind, I don't know. I know we're grabbing a plane, I don't know how soon. 15 minutes. 15 minutes? Oh, 15 minutes. And we flew in here from LA this morning, and, you know, did events. I was just at the Veterans Home, which is incredible. If any of you have not been to see that, God bless the woman who runs that. She's amazing. Noreen. And, you know, you have a lot of great things going on in your community, so. And I know it's because you're all making it happen. So I hope you make it happen for Joe, really. Thanks.